There's a continued drive for improvement in the school, and part of that is the development of the sixth form. So what I wanted to do is that we've given an assembly to the students today about how we're going to change our expectations of how they study, but also how the teachers are going to support all of the students in year 12 and 13 to ensure that the most is made out of the study periods that are allocated to the students over a fortnightly period. What I want to give you an overview is how we are going to give them more directed feedback to enable that time to be more productive, but also in the way in which we've worked with external suppliers of information and resources to ensure that we gain the best grades we can for the students. Part of that is we bought a system called UpLearn, which some students have been using, but I wish to work with the parents and stakeholders to ensure that everybody understands the expectation and the way in which we'll ensure that we get the very best grades for next steps after the sixth form. Students have always received feedback regarding work, PIPs, examinations and mock exams. But what we want to do is enhance that system, and therefore we've reflected with external advice from an expert team to ensure that the feedback and actions from students has the best outcomes that we can. What we've been looking at is a way in which we've broken down some of the key learning elements to a granular level, rather than just giving advice on which topics and which learning needs to be done. We've broken that down into the subtopics. So therefore, every single examination or assessment that the students sit, it is tracked, and we therefore RAG rate the sub-granular level to ensure that during each hour that the students have for study time or allocated work, they can really focus on the key areas that need developing. So what we're looking for is to have a process or action of a consistent approach which will maintain not just the knowledge of the students, but how they apply it. The tracking of the learning topics is held not just by the teaching staff and leadership, but also students will have that individual action plan, which is a very high level of the overview of their topics. The tracker helps the students know what the effective learning needs to take place, but also to be able to indicate where their strengths are and where there are areas for development. An example on the spreadsheet that you can see is that pupil L really needs to work on the memory element of the topic rather than just the large unit that's being studied. But then that can be then broken down into other subtopics. So pupil L can now see what components of memory they need to develop. So therefore, during their allocated time, they will not effectively waste time by looking at the whole of the topic, but being broken down to those subtopics. And this will happen for every single subject that he studies at A level. The reason for this is that we know that our students are incredibly hardworking, but what we were noticing is that sometimes they were generically studying areas and not having the high impact that we wanted. So the feedback would be a very consistent approach for all subjects, and that would be a green feedback system within the students' folders. So what we'll be looking for are different levels, and this is where we will engage in the external support as well as the internal expertise of the staff. So an example would be if the subject is green, therefore the students will be looking to review the topic. And this is where they may look at their notes, and they will look at their summaries and questions through the mark schemes they've been given. If it's a revise or an amber topic, the expectation that they will use, yes, the teacher expertise, but for those subjects with access to UpLearn, we expect them to complete the quizzes in this section. The relearn, this is where there is what we have identified as insecure knowledge. And therefore, this is where we expect them to go far deeper into the UpLearn lessons and quizzes, and also they will be supported by the subject expertise in the school. But what we're looking for is feedback to be an actionable point. It is not just about gaining the grade and being happy or potentially slightly concerned about the grade that's been given. The idea behind assessment is it indicates what is learnt deeply, what needs to be improved upon, and which knowledge is insecure. And there are a variety of platforms that we have also installed, such as Seneca, PMT, ChemSheets, Save My Exams. Now you can see an example of feedback as action, an actual example. So we can see the subtopic is conformity, but you can see the expectation. If a student is green, they will simply review and there will be a click to uplearn. Amber, again, this is about uplearn quizzes in psychology, but also it might be looking at specific lessons. And finally, relearn. This is where the lessons are uplearn rather than just the quizzes, but also this will make part of the lessons that are taking place in school. The next strategy is to ensure that we direct students in the time that they have in school to make sure that they effectively use the assessment strategies that we put in place. Students over 2 weeks have 60 periods. 30 of these are taught, and then there are PSHE and enrichment, which give 27 periods per fortnight of independent study. The intent is the independent study and learning habits will be strongly guided by the assessment routines that I've indicated in the previous slides. And how we will implement this is they will have directed study time in blocks to their timetable. We will make sure that they have a clear understanding of what is expected for them to complete in these 3 sessions. Sessions 1 and 2, the pre-reading, but also the identified areas that they need to either revise or relearn. And the session 3, the expectation is that they will take the exam bank that all staff have provided for the students in the return in January. So as you can see, the time that the students have to study will be clearly directed, not in a generalistic way, but clearly in terms of the key areas that they need to develop. As we are always looking to improve and develop, I've also made the decision with the senior team for the Year 13s only to change the calendar for the examinations in the spring term. What we want to do is replicate the best we can the real exams, and therefore there will be sessions of exams before the half term and sessions of exams after the half term. This is what is replicated in the summer term, and therefore this gives them more time after the examinations to have feedback, but also Year 13 Parents' Evening, we are returning to face, because we dearly want to have that communication that we have strongly had over the last 7 years in the last of our parent workshops. We believe that as a school, we are continually refining our practice. And part of that is also the overview of the uplearn system. We have paid for every student in Year 12 and 13 who study the following subjects: economics, physics, biology, chemistry, mathematics, and psychology. It is a system that is used by schools throughout the country, both in terms of state schools, but also schools that privately educate students. If you were to purchase this as a family, it could total to over £500 in costs. But we have decided that this is an excellent platform, and we strongly encourage you to look at the parent forum and look at the parent tab on the website to ensure that you work together in these last stages of education at school. But also for those in Year 12, it really will start them on a journey. And I have guaranteed that the current Year 12, I've also paid for their subscription into Year 13. If your child does not study those key subjects, there are other platforms such as Seneca, ChemSheets, and other areas that we have already purchased to ensure that students have another layer of external expertise. We'd like to thank you for the continued support of the sixth form and the school. As you can see, what we are doing is continually reflecting upon what makes us an outstanding sixth form. We had an assembly with the students, and I think the overwhelming response was This is about working effectively, but also preparation for work and preparation for university, where we all need to work on areas of development rather than just working on those areas that we are already successful. I'd like to thank you for your support and look forward to further developing our amazing sixth form.